Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today in the last chapel talk of the year is Dr. Tobey Herzog. Professor Herzog has a PhD in English literature from Purdue University. He's a husband, father, grandfather, Vietnam veteran, Wabash professor for 38 years, and participant in and commissioner of the Wabash Noontime Basketball Association. He's also an honorary Sphinx Club member and a Wabash honorary alumnus class of 2011. We hope you enjoyed the multitude of donuts before chapel, as Professor Herzog, who is retiring at the end of the semester, is also known as the Donut Man by his grandchildren. Please help me thank Professor Herzog for his 38 years of service here at Wabash. He is some little giant.
I guess you figure you'll stand now because you won't be standing at the end of this thing. So I have a feeling I missed an email. And I think there was an email that said someone really important is going to speak at chapel today. And I'm like the warm-up act for this whole thing. But I know you're here for the donuts, and I want to thank my wife for giving the Sphinx Club extra money so they could buy decent donuts for my last. You know, the other thing that I just want to say before I start my chapel talk, yesterday's Day of Giving was one of the most memorable days on this campus. The way that everybody came together, not only with money, but in spirit and in body in the dunk tank, and, you know, to alumni out there, how they have supported this college. For students, this is Wabash College at its best. And I think we should thank the Advancement Office for putting this together. I hope it becomes a regular giving event on this campus. Okay, this isn't going to be easy, so you may have to help me through it. I want to thank the Sphinx Club for giving me the opportunity to present the last chapel talk, which is also the title of today's talk, since it is indeed the last chapel of the semester, the last chapel of the year, and my last chapel talk as a member of the Wabash faculty. Last week we had seniors speak. This week we have senior citizens speak. I have dreaded this day for a long time, not because I dread retirement, but on this occasion I fear saying the wrong thing or not being able to say what I want to with just the right words and feelings, or not thanking enough people, or not meeting the audience's expectations of what I should say in this situation. How does one say thanks to people in a place that have been such an important part of my life and my family's life for 38 years? On occasions like this, how does someone say something meaningful without it sounding pretentious or insincere? Babe Ruth, in his last appearance at Yankee Stadium, long after he had retired from baseball, simply said, quote, "There have been so many lovely things said about me today that I'm glad to have had the opportunity to thank everyone. Thank you," end quote. And of course, Lou Gehrig, in perhaps the most famous baseball farewell, said at the end of his career, quote, "Today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of this earth," end quote. And Professor Randy Pausch of Carnegie Mellon University gave his now celebrated last lecture in 2007 to Carnegie Mellon students and colleagues, in which he gave advice on achieving one's childhood dreams and noted that, quote, "Time is all you have, and you may find one day that you have less than you think," end quote. Of course, I wouldn't dare put myself on the level of fame or fortune of these people, nor in their situations. All three were aware that they were soon going to die. At least at this point, I don't think I'm literally going to die. But as I've often thought this semester when walking into my History of Herzog class, that this last chapel talk, like a History of Herzog class, might go over the cliff quickly and take me with it. In presenting the last chapel talk of the semester, I am simply extending last week's chapel talks by our distinguished seniors. My talk will not be able to top Zach Vega's originality, nor Francisco Huerta's moving personal story of sacrifice, or Corey Kapitsky's and Patrick Stroud's insightful analysis and advice. If you have come today to hear big ideas, profound insights, and life-changing advice, this isn't the talk for you. I apologize in advance. This is a talk about aging athletes, books, war, coming of age, fathers and sons, teachers and brothers, change and loss. But most of all, it is a love story. I, like my fellow seniors in the class of 2014, will in about 2 weeks march in commencement. In fact, I will be leading them as faculty marshal. Unlike these senior classmates, it has taken me a little longer to graduate, 38 years to be exact. I kept screwing up senior comps, particularly the at-large portion of the oral exam. I was always confusing entropy with the first law of thermodynamics, forgetting some of the stages of the scientific method and repeatedly calling the Laffer curve in economics, that's L-A-F-F-E-R, the laughter curve, which, come to think of it, may be a better label. Nevertheless, on this last go-round, I passed. Not distinction or high pass, but a minimal effort pass. Some of you seniors may understand what that means. Now, as my fellow seniors did last week, I get to say a few final words. You got to have visuals, right? But first, a digression. Not a good sign for an audience wanting to listen to a short speech. But this is an important announcement, Grant. It is with sound mind and heavy heart that I must announce that after 38 years in the NBA, 7 as player commissioner, I am retiring. I thought for sure that it'd get a lot of applause. Applause especially from all the guys I scored on over those 38 years. Yeah, there they are, back there. But there's always a but. As one of my basketball heroes, Michael Jordan, did in October 1993, after winning 3 straight NBA championships, I have decided to play Major League Baseball. And I have signed a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox. I report to AA Birmingham Barons on the Tuesday after commencement. So, with this bombshell announcement that will shake up the sports world, I was sure ESPN was going to be here. I mean, I sent them an email, but I don't know. I need to caution you that much of my life this past year, especially second semester in the History of Herzog class, has been littered with Tim O'Brien's 2 types of truths: happening truths and story truths. My retirement from Wabash is definitely a happening truth. My retirement from the NBA is perhaps a story truth. The rest of this chapel talk will be happening truths mixed with a few story truths and thank yous. Wabash is a place that changes lives. How do I know this? Well, this book, Colleges That Change Lives, says. And note, I didn't go to Wikipedia to find that out. It was in this book. The author quotes a 2003 Wabash alumnus who notes that Wabash showed him that, quote, accountability, honesty, and hard work are the most important values one can have, end quote. He goes on to say that Wabash, quote, changed my life, making me realize and accept what my gifts were and that I am obligated to share those gifts with others in making this world a better place, the best way I can contribute, end quote. Of course, this publication is directed to prospective college students, but I have found that similar to this Wabash graduate, this college has made me realize the modest talents that I have and the abundant gifts I have been given. A little over 2 weeks ago, I gave a humanities colloquium titled The River of Life and the River of Nam, in which I talked about how my early interest in war stories, my life experiences as a soldier in Vietnam, and the numerous opportunities at Wabash to teach and research literature about the Vietnam War changed my academic life. But many more profound life changes have occurred from my 38 years of teaching and learning at Wabash. Perhaps nothing better illustrates this change than a brief retrospective look at the 5 previous chapel talks I gave at Wabash. These talks reflect my personality, my interests, my evolution as a teacher and mentor, and my changing relationships with the college, my own sons, and my students. Appropriate on a day when I've announced my possible story truth retirement from the NBA, I begin with my first chapel talk, which was delivered 15 years ago, almost to the day. The title was Angles of Reality, Lessons Learned While Playing in the NBA. This talk was simply about the enjoyment, new perspectives on life, and valuable lessons learned from playing basketball. But basketball played as part of a Wabash tradition, the Noontime Basketball Association, and at the time played in a gym right out of Hoosiers, the PE gym across from the Mac Petty Court, and now the location of the coach's offices. The gym contained 2 adjacent side-to-side courts, each measuring 63 feet in length, 40 feet wide, with old-fashioned wooden backboards and shooter-friendly rims. The use of this compact court size revolutionized the game of basketball. Fast breaks were almost an impossibility. And the court size led to some interesting angles of reality. Plenty of funny stories and many life lessons, including the fact that this noon game, played on such a small court, similar to the game of life, became one of constant adjustments and changing perspectives. As I noted in that chapel talk 15 years ago, and it still holds true today, through the NBA I have gained perspective on my life. With age comes aches, pains, diminished skills, but also maturity and patience to view sport and my life from new angles and with new priorities. I've changed my viewpoint of sport and life from a competitive winning is everything view. This from someone who years ago, in a rage at losing a tennis match, bounced a tennis racket off a trustee's car during a city tennis tournament. Visualize that. And I'm still here, and I was non-tenured, so. I have replaced such a perspective with an approach to sport and to life that emphasizes the joy derived from simple pleasures, from the friendships I've developed, and from the connections I have strengthened, especially with my 2 sons and many students over the years, all of whom at one time or another ventured onto the NBA court. For the Wabash students, often seniors, perhaps this basketball experience became a final class in their Wabash education. and a preparation for the rest of their life. My second chapel talk occurred 3 years later in September 2002 and was titled, "Don't Wear White Socks to the Great Cocktail Party of Life." Students and alumni who have been in my classes, especially survey literature classes, can probably figure out what most of this talk was about, since I regularly announce to students, half seriously, at the beginning of the semester that as part of Wabash's liberal arts tradition, I am preparing them for success on Jeopardy or success in the Great Cocktail Party of Life. Interestingly, over the years, when I talk with alumni who were in these classes, they can't remember a thing about the course, but they do remember that they were prepared for the Great Cocktail Party of Life. So exactly what do I mean by this phrase? At a trivial level, it means superficial info to carry on superficial conversations in diverse but superficial settings with superficial people using superficial nuggets of knowledge that might be answers to questions on Jeopardy. For example, Alex, I'll take alcohol and famous writers for $100. He wrote about a nightingale after drinking too many pints at the Spaniards Inn pub. The question, Alex? John Keats. There's my English 108 students. The question, who is John Keats? But on a more serious and educationally sound level, this metaphor suggests our students and graduates unexpected encounters with diverse people and equally diverse range of important and complex issues, many outside their Wabash major and minor, as they journey through life. I would hope Wabash men will listen, see, think, and respond intelligently as they make their way through the serious Great Cocktail Party of Life. And indeed, the hallmark of many of the Wabash alumni that I meet is that they are indeed lifelong learners, engaged in this ongoing, sophisticated cocktail party of intellectual learning and conversation. Perhaps nothing represents my own involvement with this great cocktail party of life than the books on my office shelves, prominent participants over my 38 years at Wabash in an ever-enlarging cocktail party as the number of different courses I taught at Wabash expanded. My conversations with these books became more sophisticated and engaging with each reading. The record of these conversations are in the margins or through underlines and highlights. But now, because of space issues, my ongoing cocktail party conversations with some of these books will end, and the books and notes relegated to the recycle bin. Often now, as I sit late in the afternoon at my desk, facing these shelves, the books seem to be staring at me, inviting me to engage in one final conversation. Old friends, some of whom have been with me since graduate school, and many reminding me of classes, students, and enjoyable cocktail party conversations in the classrooms. Another of my chapel talks, entitled Punk Johnson, Wabash 38, and Tim O'Brien, McAllister 68, The Choices They Made, took place in April 2008, a few weeks before commencement and the awarding of honorary degrees to these two Vietnam veterans. The first, a major general retired from the Air Force, and the second, a much more widely known soldier author writing about the Vietnam War. Both, in making choices to enter the military, firmly set the path for the rest of their life. For one, a distinguished military career involving 3 wars and pride in this service. For the other, 2 years of admirable service in the Army, but also lifelong regret and guilt about this military service, and a mission after the war to speak out against many of the wars in which the United States has been involved. What's interesting is that at the time when O'Brien, the reluctant draftee grunt, was traipsing through the Vietnam jungles in 1969, General Johnson was commanding bombing missions over some of the same territory that O'Brien was navigating as a foot soldier. Years later, as faculty marshal and a Vietnam veteran, I led these two war veterans with opposing views of the value of war onto a stage where they sat next to each other and seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company and conversation. My experience on that commencement day once again demonstrated for me that courage and patriotism appear in many forms. One can love one's country, serve proudly in the military, and wholeheartedly support the government's mission. But one can love one's country and also serve it by questioning these same government's policies, and even for some, label their participation in war as an act of cowardice. Both contrasting actions are courageous, both are patriotic, both choices define the people who make them as they live with their decisions for the rest of their life. The final two chapel talks were much more personal and have particular significance for this last chapel talk. The first, Breaking Away, a sappy parable for seniors and others, I delivered in 2007. It combines happening truth and story truth in a narrative about, at the time, my 17-year-old and 21-year-old sons, deciding to leave their aging but eager father behind when they went for a very long bike ride and some brotherly bonding. The story also included the very immature response of this aging, eager, and angry father. Here is a brief excerpt. So, after hearing about their planned trip and eagerly indicating that I would join them, I waited and waited for a response from my sons. Some acknowledgement surely would be forthcoming, an okay perhaps, or even a nod of approval. Instead, my younger son flashed the dreaded son-to-father look, a roll of the eyes and a look of exasperation. And from my older son came blunt words, quote, "It's going to be a fast 20-mile ride, and you probably won't be able to keep up," end quote. I was momentarily stunned. Can't keep up? Images, some recalled, some invented, sped through my mind of all the times years earlier I had taken my young sons to tennis courts, golf courses, gyms, baseball fields, or even our small driveway basketball court. And of course, they couldn't keep up. My response on those occasions, perhaps at the moment of the chapel talk, altered by the fog of time and emotions, was one of fatherly patience, good humor, and understanding. Through these early father-son games, I had hoped to be a major part of their lives and wanted them to be a major part of mine. As a result, I accommodated for their age and skills. I was a patient teacher. I sacrificed my competitive pleasures for their enjoyment, confidence, and success. How many times had I suffered through a round of golf as either one of my sons looked for lost balls on every hole, or got tired hacking away at the seemingly always distant green? How many times had I waited patiently for them to get a serve in on a tennis court? How many times had I stifled my urge to win the driveway one-on-one basketball game 10 baskets to zip? Well, the answer to that question is not many. But anyway, how many times had I waited patiently for them to catch up with me on their bikes as we took a casual ride around the block? Can't keep up. That's unfair and ridiculous, I now angrily thought. There is more to that story that I told that day at chapel, but trust me, it didn't end particularly well for me. As I set off on my own to ride as far and as fast as I possibly could and to once again teach my sons a life lesson. But I was the one who learned the important lesson from that experience. My sons needed the physical space and emotional independence to develop their own relationships as brothers, friends, and even sons, and to learn life lessons on their own. My presence wasn't always needed, but our love and relationship with each other could and has since survived the physical distance. This was a hard-won lesson for me in growing up, growing old, breaking away, and gaining perspective. It's a lesson that gave me a new point of view in interacting with Wabash students and their own need to go off on their own, physically, emotionally, and intellectually, whether while at Wabash or after the graduation. But more on that later. Some of the students in the audience today may have attended my last chapel talk about 2.5 years ago. A month after I had been selected as an honorary alumnus, and I had chosen the class of 2011 as my graduation class, I gave a talk titled, Teacher Turned Student and Brother, What I Learned from the Class of 2011. One of the things that I said in this talk was that I got to know 11 members of the 2011 class particularly well. These students with diverse majors had remained with me as advisees for all 4 of their Wabash years. And I am both relieved and proud to say they still managed to graduate. During this time together, in our freshman tutorial, in other classes I taught, during registration conferences, casual conversations, and my attendance at campus events they participated in, I got to know them beyond a teacher-student relationship and watched them come of age. But in the process, through them and from them, I learned more lessons about young men, about college education, about life struggles, about the ethos of Wabash College, and about myself, including the joys and trials of mentoring sons. This last phrase might seem strange, joy and trials of mentoring sons. But here's how the earlier Breaking Away Chapel talk and this one on the class of 2011 are linked. My 2 sons, Joe and Rob, are my heroes. And when they were growing up, they, along with my wife Peggy, were and still are my best friends. When the last of my sons departed for college, I was left with a gaping hole, a painful absence in my life. For months, it wasn't a pleasant time for me. But one day, after several months of misery, I realized that this absence of my 2 sons could be filled by my Wabash students. As a result, I began to see my Wabash teacher-student relationships from a new perspective, more of a father-son relationship. And I began to become much more interested in the students' lives away from the classroom. Opportunities to chat at fraternity dinners, informal cocktail party of life conversations in my office, poignant moments of listening to their stories of failure and heartbreak, my questions and prods about summer internships and post-Wabash jobs, phone calls to alumni on these students' behalf, and of course, the occasional spirited father-son competition on the basketball court. And like any worthwhile father-son relationship, there have been disagreements, moments of irritation, disappointments on both sides, a desire on my part to impart one final piece of advice, a parent's fear that I have not done enough to prepare these young men for the real world. And as every parent of sons experiences, frustration that they don't communicate with me more often. But each year, as faculty marshal, leading these young men in commencement, I have also experienced a father's pride in what these sons have accomplished, hopes for what they will accomplish, and acceptance of this inevitable breaking away. A physical distance, but I hope not a distance of memory and affection. Enough. This talk is turning into a cliche-ridden, sappy farewell. All I need is one more cliche. The line in every retiring athlete's, a disgraced politician, or fired coach's farewell statement to the press. Quote, "I am retiring or stepping away to spend more time with my family." Of course, no one ever asked the hard question of this person. Does your family really want to spend time with you? By the way, I am looking forward in retirement to spending more time with my family, a plan that my wife hasn't fully embraced yet. Save the best for last. So it's now my time to end this final chapel talk with some necessary and sincere final thank yous. To all my Wabash teaching colleagues, past and present, thank you for making this institution a place we can all be proud of, a place where educating young men through the liberal arts is our passion. Over the years, as faculty, we have occasionally disagreed about the process and content of this education, but our disagreements have emerged out of a sincere motivation of doing the right thing for our students. To all my colleagues, past and present in the English department, thank you for your enthusiastic commitment to our discipline and your goodwill, good humor, and good sense. You have made the second floor of Center Hall a place in which each and every day I wanted to work. To the staff of Wabash College, everyone from administrative assistants to the person who cleans my office, to the maintenance person who enthusiastically sweeps the basketball court during Wabash basketball games. Thank you for the passion and energy that you bring to your jobs and the love you bring to this college. To the members of the Wabash College Athletic Department, past and present, a special thanks for all you do for this institution. Everything from recruiting new students, dealing with parents and alumni, and most important, teaching, mentoring, and nurturing outstanding scholar athletes. I have particularly valued my years associating with you as a member of the Faculty Athletic Committee and as the faculty representative, athletic representative, and as a sports fan. You have made me feel welcome and humored me as I talked about my failed efforts to become a basketball coach. Perhaps the greatest compliment I could give to you is that I wish my sons had had the opportunity to be coached by each one of you. Finally, when I look out over the rows of students here today, you also represent the alumni I've taught over the past 38 years. It is to you and to them that I extend my heartfelt thanks for giving me the most challenging, rewarding, and cherished life experiences and gifts I could ever imagine. You have let me score on the basketball court. You have listened to my happening truths and story truths. You have good-naturedly responded to my silly stories and my esoteric discussions of love triangles. You have forgiven me my sin of writing too many comments on your papers. And you have graciously accepted my advice. Most of all, you have taught me to be passionate about my teaching, and you have inspired me to be a better father and person. And it is for these reasons that the greatest honor I have is to be able to call myself a Wabash man and to call you Wabash brothers. Wabash, the liberal arts college for men. Wabash always fights. And for me and my family, Wabash always. Thank you.
Just a few announcements before we leave. Tonight, the awards chapel will take place at 7 p.m. This Friday, TGIF and the Carnival will be held on the mall from 4 p.m. to 7:30. Also, this weekend, the track and golf teams will be participating in the respective NCAC championships, and the baseball team will participate in the NCAC crossover series. Please rise and sing Old Wabash. Yeah, it was fun to do.